Welcome NASCAR fans to a journey through the highs and lows of America's beloved sport. While NASCAR provides memories of great races and excitement, there's also a sad side to the sport, namely the number of drivers that have been injured gruesomely or killed behind the wheel. One of the biggest deaths in the sport's history was Dale Earnhardt, who was killed in a last lap wreck in the 2001 season opening Daytona 500. But there have been a number of other notable drivers, including Joe Weatherly, Firebolt Roberts, Kenny Irwin, Adam Petty, all killed on the track. These drivers' deaths led to some massive changes while shaping NASCAR. Not only the esteemed drivers the sport lost, there were many like the legendary Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, Allison brother, Tony Stewart, and more whose on-track incidents either led to a massive rule change in NASCAR or, well, put the sport in the limelight. Over the years, pivotal moments have shaped the sport, leading to innovations in safety and regulations that have saved countless lives and transformed the way we watch auto racing. Buckle up as we dive into 10 pivotal moments that changed NASCAR forever and shaped its storied history. Remembering Joe Weatherly. The clown prince of NASCAR, Joe Weatherly, captivated fans with his charisma and skill behind the wheel. He was one of the most popular drivers of his time and two-time defending NASCAR Grand National, now NASCAR Cup, champion in 1962 and 1963. Weatherly, driving for the legendary team owner Bud Moore, was piloting a 1964 Mercury. When on lap 87 of the 185-lap event, the former motorcycle racer turned NASCAR competitor wrecked. Tragically, his life was cut short from head injuries he sustained at the young age of 41 in the Motor Trend 500 on January 19, 1964, in a crash at the now-defunct Riverside International Raceway in Southern California. According to reports, Weatherly, whose car did not have a window net installed because he feared being trapped in a burning car, and who himself was not wearing a shoulder harness or seatbelts, was coming around a turn when his car slid into a retaining wall. Without anything to stop his body from its abrupt sideways movement, his head made contact with the wall and he was killed instantly.
Joe Weatherly died instantly when he lost his brakes and hit the wall at Riverside. Weatherly's car owner, Bud Moore, was overcome with grief.
It was just hard on all of us. I know that I come out here quit racing myself. I told my wife when we come back from California, I said, I think I'm going to quit. I'm not going through it. So she says, well, you got to sit down and figure it wasn't all your fault. He said, just remember them brakes y'all never had run on the racetrack, and Ford Motor Company had you to take the car out there and put that type brake on there, and so you got to figure they was at blame as much as you were.
Despite the loss, Weatherly's spirit lives on in hearts of fans and fellow racers alike. He was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America in 2009. The American Motorcycle Association Hall of Fame in 1998 was named one of NASCAR's 50 greatest drivers in 1998 and posthumously inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2015. While his death contributed to awareness in NASCAR about safety nets, a mandate only came in after a few years when in 1970 in the Rebel 400 race at Darlington, Richard Petty found himself in a wreck and hanging out of the window.
The position that he was in, it looked like blood coming out. It was a scary scene.
At that time I used to run with a rag in my mouth. Well, them rags got to coming out the windows and stuff and looked terrible. I think the TV camera said, get away from that.
And he certainly appears to be unconscious. The pit crew running out. This could be a very bad accident to one of the best-known race drivers in the world.
A lack of safety equipment proved fatal to Weatherly, and a close call for Petty, which led to NASCAR introducing mandatory window nets from 1971. The legend of Firebolt Roberts. Edward Glenn Roberts, known to the world as Fireball, was more than just a racing icon. Despite his intentions to retire, Robert couldn't resist the call of the race. With 33 wins, 32 poles, and finishing in the top 5 45% of the time, and the top 10 59% of the time, and 206 career Grand National starts, Roberts couldn't say no to getting back to behind the wheel one more time for NASCAR's longest race of the season, the World 600, on May 24th, 1964 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. He was a force to be reckoned with on the track, but in 1964, tragedy struck during the World 600, and it proved to be Roberts' final race of his career. Robert was on lap 7 when Junior Johnson and Ned Jarrett crashed. Roberts tried to avoid the wreckage, but instead, he also crashed. The wreck was one of the most horrifying in NASCAR history as his car slid backward into the inside retaining wall, flipped, and was quickly engulfed in flames and billowing clouds of black smoke.
We were parked in a car in the driver's and family's area off of turn 4, and that wreck happened off of turn 2 down the backstretch, and that's where the big hill and mound was, and so you couldn't see.
Our cars wound up about 30 feet apart on the racetrack. I had gotten out of mine. It was burning, but had not started burning inside yet. Just as I did, I looked and saw Firebolt was coming out of his car, trying to get out of it. And the first thing he said when I got to him, he was conscious, he was not injured in the wreck. He said, "Oh my God, Ned, help me, I'm on fire."
Yeah, it was really a terrifying set of circumstances and minutes that seemed like hours.
Roberts' car had turned over and was on fire, and he screamed at Dad to help him out, and Dad went over, and that's what happens every time we talk about it.
Roberts suffered extremely serious second and third degree burns. He was airlifted by helicopter to a nearby hospital in critical condition. Roberts remained in the hospital for more than a month after the incident. While it appeared he was improving, he took a sudden downturn on June 30th, contracting pneumonia and sepsis, and went into a coma. He sadly passed away 3 days later on July 2nd. Roberts' legacy lives on not just in his achievements, but in the safety measures his death inspired. Roberts' death prompted NASCAR to mandate fire retardant uniforms and safer fuel cells, ensuring that future drivers would have greater protection on the track. Sadly, Roberts' death came just over 3 months after the tragic racing death of his good friend Joe Weatherly. Even though he never won a Grand National Championship, Roberts was one of the most highly thought of drivers in NASCAR. He was named one of the NASCAR's 50 greatest drivers in 1998, was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1990, the Motorsports Hall of Fame in America in 1995, and the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2014. The infamous Yarborough-Allison clash. While NASCAR faced the loss of some amazing drivers, the year 1979 promised to be a year of gain because of an epic brawl between legendary drivers. The 1979 Daytona 500 wasn't just a race, it was a defining moment in NASCAR history when Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison collided on the last lap. The world held its breath. It was the first live broadcast of NASCAR race, and fans got to witness the most famous fight in Daytona 500 history. Yarborough and Allison brothers' career forever will be linked to the 1979 Daytona 500 and its finish, one that has been repeated uncountable times in video replays and in photographs over the years. For some who might not have heard, that race ended with Allison and Cale Yarborough crashing in the third turn while battling for the lead on the last lap, with the pair continuing that confrontation in the infield along with Bobby Allison. It was a fight seen around the world thanks to cameras of CBS. By a factor of 2, it's generally accepted that the 1979 Daytona 500 was the most significant race in NASCAR's history.
Two of the greatest fiddling here, fidgeting with first place. It's all come down to this. Out of turn 2, Donnie Allison in first. Donnie Allison throws the block. Cale hits him. He slides. Donnie Allison slides. Thinking again. They drive into the turn. They're hitting the wall. They're head on to the wall. Here it is. Into the turn already. Spinning, sliding. The hopes for Donnie Allison vanish. Cale Yarborough trying to win his third. He's out of it. And there's a fight between Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison. The tempers overflowing. They're angry. They know they have lost.
Even after 4 decades, to this day, it's likely more Americans still remember the spectacular finish of that race than any other. Blizzard-like weather across much of the country contributed to an unprecedented TV audience for the first live, full-distance coverage of a major race. Footage of the last lap crash between Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison, followed by their fight in turn 3 that included Bobby Allison with the voice of legendary commentator Ken Squire. It remains a staple of most Daytona 500 promotions. While everyone enjoyed some action that day, Richard Petty, who went on to win the race, stated it was one of the high points of NASCAR. Put NASCAR on a nationwide map, okay? Everything that you could put into a program, you had it that day. It couldn't have been a better footstep for NASCAR at that particular time. Hall of Fame driver Darrell Waltrip said, "It was just a storybook day. It started off almost as a disaster. but it ended up like a big old soap opera. Hall of Fame driver Bill Elliott said, "It was a wild time. It was the talk of the town. It might not have been the way NASCAR wanted to be, but sometimes things just kind of fall in your lap and you make the best of it. It shaped and molded our sport. It's just part of the history, right, wrong, or indifferent. There's no denying it." Decades later, the 1979 Daytona 500 remains a cornerstone of NASCAR lore, a testament to the sport's enduring appeal and unbridled passion. Bobby Allison, a brush with disaster. In 1987, Bill Elliott had raced to a pole-winning speed of 212.809 miles per hour in qualifying for the Winston 500 on the 2.66-mile oval, a NASCAR record that still stands. But Bobby Allison faced a nightmare scenario at the Winston 500 at Talladega. A blown engine sent his car airborne, hurtling towards the grandstand in a heart-stopping moment that left spectators in shock. Allison had qualified second at 211.797 miles per hour and was running in the lead draft on race day when his Buick went into a 180-degree snap spin resulting from a blown engine. There has rarely been a braver flagman than Harold Kinder on the stand the day Bobby Allison's Buick lifted off in the bend at the Talladega and came flying toward him at the start-finish line.
Oh, we have a problem. Bobby Allison with a horrible crash.
He didn't exactly stand his ground, but Kinder kneeled as low as he could into the flagman's nest, hung out a caution flag, and resolutely alerted drivers to what looked like impending doom. Everyone was horrified as Allison's car sailed into the air. The Buick crashed back onto the track and slid on its flattened tires to the apron, where Allison soon climbed out of his torn-up car. It took out roughly 100 feet of fencing, but only 2 other cars were caught up in the crash. Several fans were taken by stretcher from the track, but there were no critical injuries reported. Allison's brush with the disaster prompted NASCAR to implement restrictor plates, forever changing the landscape of superspeedway racing. NASCAR officials had seen more than enough, so when the teams went to Daytona and came back to Talladega that summer, smaller Holley 390 carburetors were mandated at both tracks, followed by restrictor plates in 1988. His survival and the swift action taken to prevent future tragedies underscored NASCAR's commitment to safety. The pit road tragedy. Pit road, a bustling hive of activity, which is crucial for any driver, can quickly turn deadly. In 1990, tragedy struck during a routine pit stop at Atlanta, claiming the life of crew member Mike Rich in a horrific accident. During an otherwise routine pit stop under yellow, Mike Rich was changing Bill Elliott's Ford Thunderbird's right rear tire. Suddenly, without warning, Ricky Rudd's Chevrolet Lumina spun out of control along pit lane and slammed into Elliott's car. Caught between the Lumina and the Thunderbird, Rich was killed instantly.
Expected to take on 4 tires. This is something they did not want to see.
Oh, look out, look out!
Oh my gosh! Oh my, now they tell Ricky not to stop because Ricky did come in contact with a couple of crewmen. Now Bill sitting in the car.
We see the car go to work. Here comes Ricky Rudd. The car just spins. The rear wheels lock up, and he just slams into the right rear of the Bill Elliott car and the right rear tire changer.
Here comes Rudd's car in. You see the right rear tire changer did not know that car was coming, and the jackman was hit as well.
Folks, I'm sorry to yell, but you know.
We have seen so many, and you can see Dr. Jerry Punch is on the scene.
The most immediate changes in NASCAR regulations after Rich's death were the institution of pit row speed limits and the end of crewman waving boards to identify pit stalls. Crewman safety requirements have grown stricter ever since, with anyone working on the race side of the pit today having to wear fire-retardant clothing and protective headwear. While NASCAR responded swiftly, implementing pit row speed limits and stringent safety measures to protect crew members, Rich's death served as a sobering reminder of the risks inherent in the sport. Rusty Wallace's terrifying crashes. In 1993, Rusty Wallace's harrowing crashes both at the Daytona 500 and 3 months later at Talladega sent shockwaves through the NASCAR community. At nearly 200 miles per hour, a race is as much as an airplane as it is a car. Rusty Wallace is one of the greatest drivers in existence of the sport, with 55 wins and a Cup Series championship. He entered the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2013, but above these achievements, one of his most significant contributions was his input after the 2 crashes in 1993. following a nudge by the cars of Derek Cope and Michael Waltrip, who were entangled with each other. Rusty Wallace's car spun sideways and went airborne. The Pontiac barrel rolled 8 times on the backstretch before landing on its roof. Despite Rusty's car being dismantled in the process, fortunately his safety cage prevented any serious injuries.
We're capable of pull away a little bit. They're trying to bring it in.
Trouble behind Rusty Wallace is turning over.
Rusty Wallace 20 feet in the air, spinning, crashing.
Very unfortunate situation for Rusty Wallace.
Racing
here,
back to the line.
To the flag.
Unfortunately, we've seen it a couple of times. Hopefully, Rusty's okay here.
Pontiac number 2, totally destroyed.
He's taking his helmet off, it looks like.
89 Winston Cup champion, Rusty Wallace.
Had a great run going here today.
The incident reminded NASCAR of the recent similar events that had passed. In the late 1980s, champions Bobby Allison and Richard Petty were involved in 2 horrible crashes that should have been paid attention to. However, these accidents didn't gather as much traction from NASCAR as Rusty Wallace's crash did. Rusty's luck didn't get any better later in the season. He was part of another wreck at Talladega in the Winston 500. These 2 crashes forced NASCAR's engineers to take a serious look at the recurring cases of such crashes. NASCAR officials knew they had to find a solution to prevent such catastrophic accidents in the future, and the answer was introducing roof flaps. These ingenious devices disrupt airflow and prevent cars from lifting off the track during spins, keeping drivers safe and fans on the edge of their seats. Thanks to Wallace's terrifying ordeal, NASCAR introduced roof flaps for the 1994 season, forever changing the way cars handle at high speeds. Ernie Irvin's Michigan International Speedway accident and the tire wars. Former NASCAR driver Ernie Irvin is pretty well known in the community. He has 15 wins to his name, including the 1991 Daytona 500 and the 1993 Winston 500. However, Irvin has also endured 2 hefty crashes, and coincidentally, both of them came on the same track. In 1994, Irvin's practice session at the Michigan International Speedway took a terrifying turn when his front right tire blew out, sending his car careening into the wall. The incident shed light on the dangers of tire failures and sparked a fierce competition between tire manufacturers Hoosier and Goodyear. The first major accident was during the practice session at the 1994 Detroit Gasket 200 in Michigan. It all started when his car encountered some handling issues, so crew chief Larry McReynolds called him into the pit. However, Irvin was adamant that he wanted to stay out for 1 extra lap. Then his front right tire blew up. Needless to say, the situation was terrible, and only the presence of a local trauma doctor prevented a fatality. The doctor performed an emergency tracheotomy to prevent any blood from reaching his lungs. Later on, they airlifted Swervin' Irvin to the hospital for treatment. As teams battled for traction on the track, NASCAR was forced to reevaluate its tire regulations, leading to safer and more reliable equipment for drivers. Irvin's crash may have sidelined him temporarily, but his resilience and determination to return to the track inspired a new era of tire safety in NASCAR.
Here he comes, around, headed for checkers. Ernie Irvin is finally going to win. The track that nearly did him in. For the checkered flag, and he's won. How about that performance by Ernie Irvin?
Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin Jr.'s tragic deaths. The early 2000s were marred by tragedy in NASCAR, as young drivers Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin Jr. lost their lives in separate accidents at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. 19-year-old Adam and a 4th-generation driver from the Petty racing family had made his debut merely 2 years before his untimely death. The unfortunate passing forced the organization to amend massive safety measures to avoid such fatalities. Little did the young driver know that the qualifying session in 2000 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway's Busch 200 was going to be the last time he was going to set foot inside a race car. Coming into turn 3, Petty lost control of his car, slamming straight into the wall. With the accelerator jammed, the number 45 car of the driver barreled into the outside wall at 130 miles per hour, killing him instantly. He suffered a basilar skull fracture as his head and neck snapped violently upon impact. Petty's fatal wreck was in fact a cold reminder of the sport's harsh reality, the vulnerability of its race machines, and how fast things can take a turn for the worse. Even though the organization did a prompt investigation into Adam Petty's death, they failed to save another life as Kenny Irwin Jr. died just 2 months after Adam was killed. In a spine-chilling turn of events, Irwin Jr. lost his life from the same skull trauma as Adam, mere meters away from where the petty prodigy perished. Following Adam and Irwin's death, the sanctioning body introduced a new safety feature for all of its cars, a red kill switch button that would shut down power instantly in the event of an emergency. While the kill switch wouldn't undo the past, it marked a significant step forward in driver safety, ensuring that future generations of NASCAR stars would have the tools they need to stay safe on the track. However, the kill switch didn't do anything to address the underlying issue of lacking head safety in NASCAR vehicles, which later on led to another icon's death with similar injury during the race. Dale Earnhardt's fatal crash at the Daytona 500. For more than a quarter century, he had been NASCAR's rough-hewn, blue-collar, unapologetic, intimidating hero with a well-hidden heart of gold. February 18, 2001 was a day that was forever etched in NASCAR history. On that Sunday afternoon, 7-time NASCAR champion and enormously popular 76 race winner Dale Earnhardt died in the Daytona 500. To this day, countless of millions of fans remember that moment with painful clarity. Sterling Marlin bumped Earnhardt in Turn 4, turning him almost head-on into the Turn 4 wall. By then, Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt were about to finish 1-2 in cars owned by Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. Not surprisingly, he had been blocking all challengers to give his 2 cars a cushion. By the time his cars were nearing the flag, the Intimidator was racing for third. Just as he hit the wall, there was contact from good friend Ken Schrader in the right side door. Earnhardt hit the wall and ricocheted down the banking into the Turn 4 apron. Rescue teams reached Earnhardt within seconds, but he was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital, taken by a basilar skull fracture.
Big wreck behind him. Lead him back. Come on.
I just hope Dale's okay. I guess he's all right, isn't he?
You okay? You okay?
This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements that I've ever personally had to make. But after the accident in Turn 4 at the end of the Daytona 500, we've lost Dale Earnhardt.
NASCAR had lost its greatest driver. The tragic accident sent shockwaves through the racing world and prompted NASCAR to reevaluate its safety standards. Later in the week, NASCAR reported that Earnhardt's left side lap belt had broken upon impact, throwing him forward. His chin hit the steering wheel, thus causing the fatal basal skull fracture. He also suffered 8 broken ribs and a broken left ankle. Some reports said that the belt wasn't even installed properly, that Earnhardt was more comfortable with his way of attaching it. Some speculated that a full-face helmet might have saved him. It took almost 6 months and a reported $1 million before NASCAR released its official report that supported the seatbelt steering wheel skull fracture scenario. Earnhardt's was the 4th on-track death in the preceding 9 months of year 2000. Following Adam Petty in May and Kenny Irwin in July at New Hampshire Motor Speedway and Tony Roper in October at Texas Motor Speedway. NASCAR began upgrading its safety standards, mandating head and neck restraint devices, development with the University of Nebraska of soft walls, and ultimately the safety-focused car of tomorrow. There hasn't been an on-track death since Earnhardt's. In the wake of Earnhardt's death, NASCAR mandated the use of head and neck restraints, revolutionizing driver safety in the sport. While the loss of Earnhardt was devastating, his legacy lives on in the countless lives saved by the safety measures implemented in his honor. The unfortunate passings paint a grim picture of how the early 2000s were a year of heartbreak and how they changed NASCAR forever. Tony Stewart and Kevin Ward Jr. incident. On a fateful Saturday night at Canandaigua Raceway in 2014, the world of motorsports was rocked by a tragic incident involving 2 drivers, Tony Stewart and Kevin Ward Jr. The events that unfolded would not only lead to the loss of young life, but also prompt significant changes in NASCAR's safety regulations. As both drivers charged into Turn 2, Ward's car made contact with the wall, causing a tire to blow out and sending his vehicle spinning onto the track. The caution flag waved, signaling the rest of the field to slow down and give Ward time to safely exit his damaged car. Instead of staying in his vehicle, Ward exited onto the track, seemingly intent on confronting Stewart, who he believed was responsible for the wreck. In the chaos of the moment, Stewart's car struck Ward, resulting in his tragic death. In the aftermath of the incident, speculation swirled about Stewart's intentions and whether he could have avoided the collision. Witnesses provided conflicting accounts, with some suggesting Stewart may have seen Ward on the track and others highlighting the poor visibility inherent in sprint car racing. NASCAR reacted swiftly to the tragedy, implementing a new rule prohibiting drivers from exiting their cars after on-track incidents unless extenuating circumstances exist. This rule change aimed to enhance safety on the track and prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. According to the NASCAR Vice President Robin Pemberton, the organization's priority has always been on the safety of its competitors and everyone involved in the racing environment. The new rule ensures that drivers remain in their vehicles until safety personnel or officials arrive on the scene, minimizing the risk of further accidents. The tragic events at Canandaigua Raceway served as a sobering reminder of the dangers inherent in auto racing. But through a swift action and a commitment to safety, NASCAR continues to evolve and adapt, ensuring that the thrill of race is matched only by the safety of its drivers. From terrifying crashes to groundbreaking innovations, these pivotal moments have forever changed the landscape of NASCAR. As we look to the future, one thing is certain: the spirit of competition and the pursuit of safety will always drive us forward on the racetrack. From triumph to tragedy, NASCAR's history is a tapestry woven with moments of glory and sorrow. As we honor the legends lost and the lessons learned, let us continue to celebrate the spirit of competition that defines the sport we hold dear. This has been a journey through NASCAR's legends, tragedies, its impact and evolution, a testament to the enduring legacy of America's greatest racing spectacle. Do hit that like button, share, and subscribe for more. Until next time, keep the conversation going. Unlucky Dog on track.